I'd like to talk about better, not bitter, and what I mean when I say this. But before that, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Ghazala at the Heart and Soul Cafe. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're here for the first time, you're very, very welcome. So this is something that a friend of mine said to me. You are better, not bitter. So after, many of you already know that I lost my son very sadly 4 years ago. And I was in a very sort of depressed state for at least 6 to 8 months after losing my son. And I think it was sometime after that I was in the presence of a friend, and I talked about the things that I decided I was wanting to do, all the positive things. I wanted to start up a charity. I started volunteering for a charity where I support women who have also experienced child loss. So there was a few things that I had in mind that I was wanting to get on with and do. And she turned around and said, "You're such an example of better, not bitter." And at that time, I sort of thought, what does she mean? But then sort of thinking about it, it did actually stick in my mind. And going on, counselling women who have experienced child loss or had other losses in their life, I sort of really started understanding what this friend actually meant. And there's so many of us that can have experienced loss and really hold on to a bitterness as a result of that. If you become, and this happened to me, it's not that, it didn't happen, but there was times where I started thinking, why me? Why did this have to happen to me? Although it didn't happen for me too much, because I very, very quickly stopped thinking that way and thought, well, I'd only think that way if I was the first mother that had ever lost a child, or the last mother that's ever lost a child. No one else has lost a child other than me. Then I probably would have said, well why me? Why has this happened to me? But I knew that I wasn't the first, and I wasn't obviously not going to be the last. Sadly, this happens. It does happen. And it's unfortunate, but it does happen. And so I didn't really dwell on that thought so much, why me? I thought more or less, I think for me, a stronger thought was, what now? What do I do now? Sort of putting that question out into the universe, if you like. What does this mean? Okay, what does this mean for me? Where does this lead to? Is this my end? Is this what's now going to take me? Am I going to get this? Am I going to get horrid illness as a result of this? And just what does this mean? But what that thinking did lead to was, well, I want to help others as a result of losing my son. I don't want my son's death to be in vain, if that's something that we could sort of say. I want to leave some kind of legacy, and those were the sort of things that were stopping me from feeling bitterness. But I do, sadly, as I do counsel women, I do hear that so much. Why did this happen to me? Why has this happened to me? And I've come across people that had faith before their loss, and then they've almost lost faith. That doesn't mean to say necessarily that that's for a permanent thing. That might be just a temporary thing, because we do have anger when we experience loss, and anger is one of the 5 stages of grief, and I've talked about that in a video as well. So anger is something that we can feel. We can feel denial, we can feel all sorts of things. So having that thing about bitterness is something that we can hold. But the thing to think about is, it's not going to serve any kind of purpose. There's no positivity that's going to come out of bitterness. And I knew that. Me holding on to some negativity isn't going to change anything. If it's not going to change anything, why am I holding on to it? And that's really my thinking. If bitterness is something that's going to eat me up inside, then what good is that going to do me? And yes, I do know people, I have known of people in my extended family who have sadly, mothers, that have passed away as a result of losing a child because they had so much bitterness inside, that thinking about feeling the victim. And if you are the victim in a situation, then you are probably going to have bitterness and hold bitterness. Please comment if you disagree with what I've just said, but that's my opinion. And, holding on to those thoughts of why has this happened? Why has this happened to me? Holding any kind of bitterness, sometimes it can be that you've had a fallout with somebody. It might be a fallout with somebody that a loved one in your family. It might have been a very good friend that you might have fallen out with. And, you're holding bitterness there. And that isn't really something that's going to, again, serve any sort of purpose. It's not going to have any kind of positive outcome, positive effect on you, or is it going to, help you move forward? I think in any way, if anything, it's going to just hold you back. It's going to stop you from moving forward with. I think that's a negative thing in itself. So when my friend said, you are an example of better, not bitter, at that time I wasn't sure what she meant, but yeah, she knew what she was talking about, because I wasn't showing any signs of holding on to bitterness. I was thinking, well, okay, this has happened, there's no way of changing it, but what can I do now to extract something positive out of something so appalling like losing a child? What can I do now? And that has been my goal, and that has been my driving force and my reason for getting up out of bed in the morning and to move forward. Without that, there wasn't going to be anything, and I was going to not have any hope. And I've talked about hope in various videos too. But bitterness isn't a positive thing. It's definitely a negative thing. If I had have held on to bitterness about, why has this happened, and my son was only 22, and I can't make sense of it, and held on to that would have stopped me from moving forward in any way, or trying to do anything positive, doing any of the things I do, run a charity, my own charity in my son's name, to volunteer for the charity where I counsel and support women. Holding bitterness myself wouldn't have helped me help them. How was I going to do that if I felt like a victim myself? But I do try and help other women from not holding on to that bitterness about, why has this happened to me, and feeling angry with the world and angry with the universe and angry with perhaps God for taking their child away or taking their loved one away. It's not going to serve a purpose. No positive purpose is it going to serve. It's only going to get in the way and hold you back from moving forward, or stopping you from healing. And healing is something that's so important. So better, not bitter, is really the message in this video. If you felt that the content of this video might help somebody else, then do share it, do like, do subscribe, do comment. I do want to build this community here and build a conversation, start up a conversation about loss, grief, mental health. So please do comment. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, take care of your hearts and souls.